Why Magdalena? Magdalena holds keys to our ancestral past that has been obscured by religious myth. Why do I say this? There are signs of it all over Europe. For 2,000 years, Christianity has tried to erase the traces of the woman's role in civilization. Following the true thread of Magdalena can reveal a whole new fabric of our ancestral past. In this clip, we will give a brief look at some of the most striking examples of Magdalena we have found. We'll begin and end in France and pay short visits to Hungary, Croatia, Slovenia, Austria, Germany, and Italy. Let's start from the beginning. DNA studies show us that the human odyssey began in Africa. From there, major migration routes led through the Middle East and into Europe. My personal information adds to that evidence. Mom's ancestors spent tens of thousands of years in the Middle East before coming to Europe. Early arrivals to Europe carried with them memories of places along the migration routes where they and their forebears had lived. People coming to Europe from the Middle East brought names from the Middle East and attached them to European places. Magdalena means from Magdala, and Magdala is on the Sea of Galilee. So it must have been that early settlers brought the name Magdalena from the Middle East to Europe and attached it to their new home. When might this have occurred? Archaeologists have found artifacts at Magdalene in the Périgord showing habitation some 12,000 years before the current era, just after the last ice age. That geologic time period is known as the Magdalenian because of the wealth of information uncovered in Magdalena. Early settlers arriving in the Périgord came to a welcoming place. The river that looped in the valley below brought fresh water and fertile soils, while the caves carved into the high cliffs gave them a safe, dry home. Malleable, porous stones yielded underground chambers with simple tools. Those in the Magdalena group that came to the Périgord didn't have to build, they burrowed. What imagery did these early Magdalena settlers choose to decorate their walls? The female form. Why would they make such a choice? From earliest times, humans have expressed gratitude for elements that make their existence possible: the sun, the earth, the women who gave them birth. Why would anyone want to hide the Magdalena story of migration to Europe from Africa and the Middle East? We need look no further than Russia's invasion of Ukraine for the answer. Women and children are targets of the conqueror's attacks, just as they have been for thousands of years. I will speak very clearly. The Christian conquest of Europe meant that Celts lost their lands, their liberty, and their lives to the invaders, and women lost rights that have not been regained to this day. It still goes on. Countless ancestors have suffered under the subjugation of the Christian church state. Heresy laws, laws that condoned slavery by nations, control of thought and narrative, witch burnings, and still we have white male supremacy masquerading as a god system. So how can we cut through the web of deceptions woven by Christian conquerors of Europe for the past 2,000 years? Let's put ourselves in their shoes. What can you do when someone comes in and takes over, threatens you and your family with death if you even think about objecting? Names. You can still name your children, your rivers, your hilltops. During times of subjugation, names survive when almost nothing else can. So we've seen the caves where our ancestors landed, and let's just assume these were our ancestors because it's pretty likely they were. They obviously spread out across Europe and the British Isles. Through DNA, we can see that early families in Europe moved around and intermarried freely in a Europe connected by rivers, trade routes, and strongholds. What inferences can we make by looking at the Magdalena and the Périgord? At the moment, this is our oldest point of reference for dwellings our ancestors inhabited 14,000 years ago. Here you can see the amazing setup, the high cliffs, the river below, the gardens on the slopes. In the caves themselves, there's a main gathering chamber. Ledges make a second level for living, closed ovens and hearths for cooking, baking, and heating. And yes, our early ancestors even had a bakery in the cave. We don't know when these advancements occurred, but this place was inhabited for thousands and thousands of years. At some point in that span, they added an oven. They made a bakery in the cave. At Magdalene and the Périgord, we also see how the transition was made to the castle on the hill, the fortress that gave more protection. As building skills improved, walls grew stronger and more secure. It made perfect sense to expand upward from the cave to a walled village that was located even higher for better views and the ability to guard. From cave to castle, we see it here in the Périgord. Where else do we see Magdalena beyond the Périgord? Let's look at pre-Christian villages in Central and Eastern Europe that bear the name Magdalena. Hungary, Croatia, Slovenia, Austria, Germany, Italy, France. In Hungary, we see Magdalena attached to an early fest hall. We will imagine that the abbey just above the old stone hall was an expansion, and that the newer building afforded opportunities for teaching, learning, producing, planting, harvesting, and winemaking, as well as the gain of a larger gathering hall. In Croatia, Magdalena attaches to a hot springs resort town. You might remember that the Frankish family in particular appears to have developed health spa towns where winters could be spent in naturally heated comfort. Slovenia's Madelinska Gora has yielded artifacts related to wine-mixing vessels from the Iron Age. These situla were highly decorated with heroes, processions, and wagons. Austria's Magdalenaberg village mined gold. With its commanding view from high on the mountain top, the vestiges that remained from this Iron Age settlement exhibit advanced architectural and building skills, especially the stone arches and the mathematical precision of the walls. In this Magdalena location, a sculpture of a woman was found. This site was later plundered and attacked by the Romans. In Germany, Magdalenenberg also sits on a hilltop. A number of white poles were arranged on the highest point, with the burial chambers arranged methodically on the hillside. Italy's Magdalena jumps us all the way to the 15th century and an abbess who commissioned the exquisite wood-carved furnishings for the choir section of the hall. This connection also brings into focus the centuries of other abbeys founded by women, particularly in the Essen area of Germany. Lastly, the Madeleine in Paris might be the quintessential hero's hall. Here women are beautifully portrayed, and the statuary appears to be homages to women. Magdalena is shown here as she is so often, with the serpent under her feet. Our interpretation is that the serpent represents the adversity she has overcome. We feel that it's a broad allegory for enduring the winter's cold, the taming of the wolves, the carving out of shelter, the winning of battles against attackers, and the ongoing onslaughts under religious banners. Our story continues.